Monster City Madhouse, a year-round online store full of Halloween and classic horror shirts, with an emphasis on the vintage look. Use code SAVE10 for 10% off your order. MonsterCityMadhouse.com. Free shipping and financing's available. Welcome back to Southern Ghost Stories. I am the American historian, Alan Sircy. Now, if this is your first time here, I'm glad you found the show. And if you've been listening for a while, I really do appreciate you coming back. Before we get into this podcast, just a quick update. I was recently invited to join the iHeart family, and the show has officially moved over to Spreaker. That's a big step forward, and it's going to help us reach a whole lot more listeners. So if you haven't already, make sure you're following us or subscribed wherever you listen. Leave a rating if you can, and share the show with somebody who's into true crime, ghost stories, or just weird history. That stuff matters more than people think. So you can find Southern Ghost Stories on Facebook or Instagram. Go and check it out. And if you got questions, story ideas, or something you want me to cover, send it in. I'm going to start answering some questions on the show. Did a Q&A a few weeks ago. Got one more in the works. Now, today's story comes out of Chicago. And this one, it's got everything. You got a brutal murder, a public execution, and then, depending on who you ask, a ghost that didn't show up somewhere random, but right where everything happened. So let's go back to the mid-1800s. Andrew Perteet wasn't exactly someone who started a life with any kind of advantage. He was born in Jasper County, Georgia, the son of a wealthy French Creole planter and an enslaved woman. That alone puts him in a complicated place right from the jump. For the first 35 years of his life, Andrew worked in the fields under conditions he had no control over, and a system designed to keep him exactly where he was. Eventually, though, he managed to secure his freedom. And like a lot of people in the situation, he went north, looking for something better. He ended up in Illinois and began trying to build a life for himself from scratch. He learned a trade, painting and paper hanging. And for a while, things actually seemed like they might work out. In 1850, he married a woman named Martha Ingram. And the following year, they had a daughter, Lucinda. For a brief stretch of time, Andrew had something stable, a family, a trade, a future that didn't look like his past. But that didn't last. At some point while working, Andrew took a serious fall. Not something minor. This was the kind of injury that changes your life permanently. His legs were badly damaged, and although he eventually got back on his feet with the help of a cane, he never was the same again. Every step was painful, the kind of pain that doesn't go away. It doesn't ease up, and it doesn't give you a break. And instead of finding a way to manage it, Andrew turned to alcohol. What started as a way to dull the pain, it became a routine. Nights spent in saloons, drinking more than he should, coming home worse for it. And as you can imagine, it took a toll on his family. His marriage, it started crumbling. Whatever connection he had with Martha just faded over time, replaced with tension, resentment, and distance. And then things got worse. By 1870, his daughter Lucinda, who was about 18 at the time, started seeing a man named James Newsom. During that relationship, she became pregnant. Today, that might raise some eyebrows, depending on the situation. But in 1870, working class household already under strain, it was a serious issue. Andrew, he was furious. He argued with Lucinda. He argued with James. And those arguments didn't stay verbal for long. There were outbursts, threats, moments where things could have gone even further. Eventually, it got bad enough that Martha and Lucinda just packed up and left. They moved out of the house they'd been living in and found another place, trying to get away from Andrew and whatever he might do next. But Andrew didn't let it go. He kept showing up, kept drinking, kept inserting himself into their lives. And then came September 16th, 1871. That night, Andrew was in a tavern when he heard something that pushed him over the edge. Someone mentioned that Lucinda was pregnant again. And that was it. No hesitation, no second thought. He left immediately and made his way to where Martha and Lucinda were staying. When he got there, the argument started almost instantly. He demanded answers, demanded to speak to his wife, demanded to know what's going on. Martha, she tried to defuse the situation. She stepped into the kitchen and she said she had to make some tea. Well, Lucinda stayed in the next room, working on a nightgown for her baby, listening as her parents argued. At first, it was just raised voices. Then something changed. He heard a sound. It was something like liquid hitting the floor. Lucinda went to the kitchen expecting to find some spilled tea. Instead, she found her mother lying on the floor, covered in blood. Her throat cut so severely, it was ghastly. It was beyond recognition. Martha was still alive for a moment, struggling, barely able to breathe. Lucinda tried to help her, tried to lift her, but she couldn't manage it. The weight, the shock, the panic, it was too much. She ran to the window and started screaming for help, yelling "murder" out into the street. Neighbors came rushing in. People gathered, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. And Andrew, he was gone. A search began almost immediately. A crowd formed, angry, loud. They were looking for him. And Andrew, knowing he couldn't outrun anyone with his bad leg, he made a decision. Instead of hiding, instead of trying to escape the city, he walked straight to the police station. And when he got there, he was out of breath, disoriented, and acting strangely. He pointed at his neck and told the officers to lock him up, but he didn't explain why. When asked, he claimed his wife had cut his throat, even though there's no signs of an injury. The officer on duty didn't know what to make of it. Andrew didn't seem coherent, so they placed him in a cell, just like he asked. And not long after that, another officer came in to describe the suspect in the murder on Polk Street. As he spoke, it became clear. The person they were looking for in the murder, they already had him. Well, Andrew Perteet was charged with murder. His defense at trial, it didn't help him. He claimed that Martha had taken her own life during an argument, and he had nothing to do with it. The jury didn't believe it. They deliberated for about 20 minutes before returning a guilty verdict. He was sentenced to death. Now, there were delays, appeals, technical arguments that briefly gave him some hope. But in the end, none of it changed the outcome. The execution was scheduled. So on January 19th, 1873, Andrew woke up early that morning. He ate breakfast, spent time praying, and spoke with a minister. By all accounts, he seemed calm. But the method of execution was quite unusual. Instead of a traditional gallows with a trap door, the system relied on a heavy set of sandbags, over 500 pounds, attached to a rope and a pulley. When the rope was cut, the weight would drop and it would snap the prisoner's neck instantly. So when the moment finally came for Andrew there at the execution, that's exactly what happened. Rope was cut, the weight dropped. It was over quickly. After his death, A series of letters he had written in jail were all delivered. In those letters, Andrew, he admitted everything. He confessed to killing Martha deliberately using a straight razor. He also admitted that he had planned to kill his daughter and then take his own life, but he lost his nerve after seeing what he had done. And that would have been the end of the story. But it wasn't. In the days and weeks after the murder, people living near Polk Street began reporting something strange. A woman dressed in black seen walking the streets at night, not speaking, not interacting. She was just there, watching, moving through the area where the crime would take place, all through the neighborhood. People that lived there started calling her the Night Hag. Even Andrew claimed while he was in jail, he saw her, that she came to him at night. She stood near his cell. She tormented him. Now, whether that was guilt, fear, or something else, no one can really say. But he insisted she was there. She was watching him. Well, strangely, after the execution, the sightings of the Night Hag, they stopped. No more reports, no more appearances, nothing. Now, some people believe the Night Hag, it was Martha, that whatever was keeping her there was tied to what had been done to her. And once Andrew was gone, once he was executed, there's nothing left holding her in that place. Or maybe it was just something else entirely. The Night Hag's just a wild, weird story. And Chicago is full of wild, weird stories. And if you want to learn more about Chicago's haunted history, check out my book, Ghost Stories and Graveyard Tales Chicago. It's one of my favorite books I've written. There's just so much history there. I mean, in the book alone, there's a Frankenstein story. There's some wild grave robbing, the Congress Plaza Hotel. I mean, Chicago has a ton of history, and a lot of it's just wild and weird. The grave robbing stories alone will make your hair stand up. The gentleman burglar, I spoke about him in length on a podcast last year. There was a guy who killed a police officer, and then he was executed, and then they tried to bring him back to life with electricity. It was a thing. It's called galvanism. It was a huge thing. I've written books about it. The Resurrection of Knox Martin, about a galvanism Frankenstein story in Nashville. The experiments with electricity back in the 1800s will melt your brain. So yeah, Chicago has some wild, weird history, and the Night Hag, the Sausage King's also in there. So if you want a wild murder story, the Sausage King, there's a businessman, Adolf Lukert. It's not Abe Froman. If you've been watching Ferris Bueller, the Sausage King is about Adolf Lukert. He made a fortune selling sausage in the World's Fair. Well, World's Fair ends. He should be downsizing his sausage operation, the factory he built. Instead, he's trying to grow it. He's hemorrhaging money. He's getting letters at his home from the slaughterhouses. He owes creditors. His wife goes to him, "Hey, Adolf, what's with this invoice? Do we owe some people some money? Are the finances okay?" She goes missing. Well, then his brother-in-law comes over. "Hey, where's my sister?" "I don't know. Thought she's visiting you." He goes to the police. They go to the sausage factory. They find her wedding ring and a vat of acid in the basement. So, good times. Unless you're the lady in the acid. But yeah, that's the Sausage King. Check that out. It's on Amazon. You can find it in select stores. Also glossed over it in Ghost Stories and Graveyard Tales Chicago. I'm telling you, man, Chicago has some wild stuff. I mean, the Congress Plaza Hotel, if you're familiar with that hotel, it's historic. There's a story where a lady from Yugoslavia, she was an immigrant. She and her husband wanted to move here, moved to Canada, open a business. She missed home. She told her husband she's taking her boys to the zoo. Well, instead, they went to the Congress Plaza. She rented a room on the 12th floor. And sometime that night, she threw her two boys out the window. And then she jumped. And they found their remains there on the sidewalk. So a long-time security guard who's been there for years and years and years, he told me he's been to the 12th floor and seen a little boy walking around wearing just old period attire. So, yeah, man, Chicago, some wild, woolly stuff. And also, don't forget my new book, Pistols at Red River. It's now available. You can grab a copy at Amazon, select locations. I know Honey Rock Books and Cafe has it here in Gallatin. Pickle Treats and Antique, also here in Sumner County. Cash Saver in Hendersonville has it. But you can find it online. But anyway, I'll be at the Portland, Tennessee Strawberry Festival this weekend, signing books in the Southern Ghost Stories booth. Come find me, say hello, get spooky with me, talk some wild stuff. And again, make sure you're following the show. Leave a review. Share it with somebody you think who would enjoy it. And check out Southern Ghost Stories on Facebook and Instagram and send in your questions. I'll start answering them on future episodes. Also, my buddy Ben over at MonsterCityMadhouse.com. Have you guys been to MonsterCityMadhouse.com? You got to check it out. Monster City Madhouse, they have these cool retro, old school horror shirts. And his newest one is Lagoon Life. And it's just, the creature of the Black Lagoon and his family growing out. It's really, really cool. He has some new stuff he's dropped. He has a Hulk Hogan Halloween shirt that's probably my favorite. What you're going to do when Halloween runs wild on you, brother. But yeah, if you haven't already done so, go to MonsterCityMadhouse.com. Check out the shirts. There's a promo code. I talk about it in the ads here on the show. So save some money, get some really cool, creepy, cool apparel for, it's not quite spooky time for October, but still, a t-shirt, you can wear them in summer, and you'll be the head of the pool party, I promise you. So this weekend, I'll be in Portland, Tennessee, not Portland, Oregon. I'll be at the Strawberry Festival. Come by and see me, say hello. And then I will be at Louisville HorrorCon next weekend. In fact, I want to drop a Louisville episode on Tuesday, talking about the old Galt House. Louisville's kind of like Nashville. It's a little river town. It's like Cincinnati. All kinds of weird, wild history there. Waverly Hills Sanitarium, they say the most haunted place in America. I did a show on that, I think it was last week, talking about the history of Louisville. So, yeah, you guys come see me at Louisville HorrorCon next weekend. I know that Jack Osborne's going to be there. He's got Linda Blair from The Exorcist is going to be there. All kinds of celebrities. There's going to be panels. I'll be signing books and talking to folks. It's going to be a good time. Any excuse I can get away to Louisville, go get some Skyline chili, it's going to be a good weekend for me. So it's one of those things whether you love it or you hate it, but Skyline chili, that's a treat, man. So yeah, and then the next big appearance is I'll be at the National Farmers Market the following 2 weeks. The first weekend in June, I'll be at Spawn a Scarefest. And if you guys heard of that, Spawn a Scarefest, it's like Scarefest is in Lexington, Kentucky every October. It's one of the biggest horror conventions in the country. Well, they're kind of like doing like Horror Hound, and they're branching off and doing a second show, and it's going to be the first weekend in June. And I'll be up there. It's at a hotel, but you can Google it, Spawn a Scarefest, to find out all the information. But it's going to be a big weekend. I'm really excited about it. So, yeah, check back on Tuesday, and I got an episode dropping on the Galt House. I'll see you guys then. Check out the exclusive shirts from Monster City Madhouse, Gravestone, Rocktober, and Val Halloween. All that and much more at MonsterCityMadhouse.com.